Hello out there in cyberspace. How is life? I hope it finds you well. Today we are going to start the paint job on my butcher knight. I wanted to paint this guy because he's definitely a drift away from what I usually do, especially here on the channel and stuff like that, but also because it's such an amazing model. I like the heft and like the chunk of this guy. And we're just gonna start with the skin and then do the armor. And here we go with the skin. I, of course, shaded it a little bit, so I wet blended some purple and magenta pink on top of that. And now we're going in with a pale, sort of pinkish gray color. And I'm adding a lot of water to this to dilute it so that I can stretch the paint and thus get the sort of transitions that I'm looking for. Like, rather than 2 thin coats, here we are talking about like 4 very thin coats to get a very nice gradient throughout the entire miniature. And I'm also going more for like the general shapes. Like here on the biceps you can see that I went from below and up, but then I don't want to have that sharp line between the biceps and the shoulder muscle, so I'm just going to paint over that pretty much. With such a thin color, that's gonna leave a lot of the purple and pink shining through. This is gonna get it to look a little bit more natural, which I hate to do because I'm not that kind of a painter. And we're always looking for like getting that light source from the top here, because I don't have a directional light. I'm going for this pretty simple zenithal. And those base colors are what's going to give us some sort of a atmosphere and some unhealthiness to the skin as well. And to just capitalize on this amazing sculpt and how very, very disgusting he actually is. You can see me here in the darkest areas even adding this highlight color, because when this dries up it's not going to be that bright. And that will also give the shape a sort of continuation, even though it's in the dark, because you have to think about that there will be some sort of bounce light from the ground as well when you look at things like this. So while you want to have shadows on the downward facing surfaces, you still want to have enough light to actually see kind of the shapes that are there. And I'm just adding more and more layers on top of everything here, and that will finally at the end make the top layer very opaque, which will be like the original color as it was intended. And now I've done that all over the miniature because I'm too lazy to show you all of it. Now I added a sort of off pinkish white color to that grayish pink color to add the last highlights of the skin. And I'm still focusing on the upper areas, and I'm still doing it with a slightly more diluted color than I might want to if I was doing something else. But here we're just using that translucency to get the gradient from the dark to light easier than if you're gonna blend the 10 colors. And just moving around, see what it looks like. It's gonna be kind of fun. There we go. On to the armor. I've done things with the armor that you haven't seen. I washed it with a reddish brown, and now I'm going in with a dark Prussian blue from Vallejo, the only color I actually remember in my head what it is. And I'm trying to look for cool places where I want to place my highlights for the NMM armor. Like, where does the light hit the model in a certain angle and stuff like that, because this is how you can really go to express yourself and show like your artist thing, I guess. I'm not a reality recreator, so to speak. I just do things that I like and that I think look cool. So once you see this at the end of it, or at the start, as I added it to the start, you might go like, yeah, but that doesn't look like real, true NMM armor. No, it doesn't. It looks like my sort of NMM armor, my fantasy of what it should look like on this miniature. And sometimes it's actually better if you just don't do realism, because it's going to be a little bit more fun, I guess, for me at least. Here you can also see that I'm adding a little bit of color to the knee pad, which is also a skull on the inside, because I'm going to do a slight highlight on that, not as much as on the one that's more upright and to the front. And by adding a pale light gray, it's almost white, to this mixture in several steps. I just go in and enforce those highlights by stippling and drawing lines and scratches and weird stuff. I do not blend this with like mixture of paint or the opacity thing that I did with the skin, but rather with texture, because that's one thing that I really wanted to do on this model, was like separate the different parts of the miniature with their texture. So the armor I wanted to be kind of beaten, because this is a knight, he's been fighting and he's obviously not taking care of it. So that's one way of doing it, by getting the skin to be very sort of soft and rounded and not hard at all, and then going in and giving the armor this like super harsh and hard highlights and texture. That way you can build up a second contrast between the two, not just with dark and light and warm and cold, but also texture wise. And I'm just going back and forth. I might add a little bit of more of the lighter gray to this color, but then I might see like, oh, I need to redo that, so I go back and add some more blue to the mix, so I can fix small areas as I go along. Because you don't have to do like the perfect pass with your brush. You can just go like, yeah, well, I'll do this, and then oh, I missed that, or I'll just go back and fix it. That's fine. Like, I can bet you every painter does that sometime. And here I am mostly focusing on the upwards facing areas, and I haven't really gone to another area yet. But then I'm also seeing the damage in the armor, and I add the highlights onto the damage on the upwards facing area, so you can see the sharpness of the metal. Because high contrast makes us think that things are shiny or sharp, and in this case mostly sharp. You can also see that red spot on this thigh there. That's a lucky accident. I just happened to have the wrong dilution of my brown in the wash on there, but it actually turned out kind of nice. I'm going to enforce that in a later step, in a later video, because I haven't done the weathering on this model just yet. And working back and forth and then going into these new areas, and you can see here that I'm starting to add the lighter highlights and also scratches to parts of the armor that isn't at all blue, and that is to sort of meld it together. And I'm adding very thin stripes of lighter color towards the edges of these things, and that is to sort of capture that secular light bouncing around, because two metal pieces that are meeting each other, they actually highlight each other, so to speak. There's supposed to be sort of an edge around it. And also here you can see me going in and adding highlights to the knee pad on the top, and there's a very important line going in on the inside there, to show that there's an edge there. I do not paint that on smaller minis though, this is a pretty large miniature. To show off the skull, I go in with a very bright color here, to show the roundness of the skull on the knee pad. And I also add a line across the top of it on the knee pad, above the skull, and you're gonna see that soon. And I go in and I add a lot of different sort of weird highlights and trying to just make it look cool. It's not realistic looking at all. That knee pad, to me, it looks like it's awesome. But to somebody who's looking for realism, they're gonna go like, why did you do this? Why? And there we go, with even more lighter colors. The bolts on the armor is getting painted as well. I'm trying my best to sort of get him looking nice. The skull, I actually kind of painted the same way I would do a normal skull, but with the wrong colors, of course. This is just blue and gray. And again, more light, more texture, like dots and stuff, because that's what's gonna make it sell as something that's kind of shiny, at least. I'm not an anime painter, like you can obviously tell that here, but I want to make it look cool. I want it to be more like a painting, a fantasy painting, like a Frank Frazetta painting in a way, not like a photograph. And here I'm actually adding that secondary light from below, because this would be not that harshly highlighted in a way, but it is for me, because I want this to be visible clearly. I want it to be seen, and I want to see that line differentiating between a knee pad and the leather straps that are hanging off his knee, of course, but also the lower leg armor. Just more fixes and more adjustments of what I want to do, like more light or more scratches, and fixing the things that I had already done, sort of, but I want to go in more, and I want to add some more stuff, and this is where you can kind of like see on your own miniatures in the future, like if you think it's missing something, it is perhaps that little bit extra, and it's totally okay to go back and redo stuff. And as I'm turning the model there, I'm actually looking for more places to place lights, like on his kneecap here. And when you turn it, you can see sort of in the paint, you can see the light playing a little bit, and you can change things with it. I'm very bad at photographing these sorts of things, but if you try and do it yourself, you're probably going to see the light changing, and where you can add extra highlights and stuff for your preferred angle, and that's gonna make it look cooler, I guess. That's what I think, at least. And here we go with like one of the last highlight steps. This is almost the pure light gray that I have on my palette. There's no white in this. I haven't added any white. This gray color is actually pretty white, but if you stand it up against the white color, it's going to look slightly gray. And this is where we add those like little spots where there's extra shininess. There's where the light would bounce the most, and I added to the edges to really reflect that sharpness of the material. And that inner line there, I'm so happy I got that, and I actually did it on several parts of the model, but I haven't been doing that for so many years, but it was really fun to be able to do it once again. And a quick final twist on the model. Let's meet up in the post-talk. And of course, in the post-talk, we have to have a nice big close-up of his behind, sort of. I showed you the front of the miniature in the beginning, so I thought I'd show you back at the end here. My reasoning for this video and painting this miniature is that I sort of want to talk about the big elephant in the room with my videos. I don't really want you to follow my recipes. I want you to perhaps follow my train of thought and my ideas on things, but not my recipes. That's why I'm not really telling you what colors I'm using. Like I told you, I used a purple and a pink magenta-ish color for the start of the skin, and then a pinkish gray. You have probably got versions of those colors in your paint set, so I want you to just use them. Try using new stuff all the time. I do it because it's fun, and it keeps things fresh for me. I've been doing this now for 32 years. Man, I'm old. However, that just makes it still feel new to me, and I still enjoy painting things. And that's the biggest plus side of everything. Like, you need to enjoy doing this, because if you don't, well, perhaps you need to spice things up a little bit. And don't worry if you mess up. If you do, just paint over it, restart, do it again. The point is that you have to have fun. And if I can make you sort of see things in a new light, and perhaps try a new idea and slow down and take your time and enjoy your hobby, then I'm okay with that. That's more than okay, actually. I'm happy if I do so. So check back in a week. I'm gonna be back with more miniatures. I'm currently working on a Beastman warband for Mordheim, and they're gonna get a video where I actually show you how I did this skin here, but on them instead. So that video is gonna be out in about a week. Until then, thank you for watching, and if you do, for some reason, you gotta be sort of weird, please like and subscribe. It's all appreciated, and it goes towards my goal of becoming like the 1,000 millionth YouTuber in this niche. Until then, thank you and have a nice day.